Hello, everyone. It's Nunu. I want to take a moment and say thank you to all the new subscribers, and thank you for everyone who's been reaching out and sending me emails and leaving comments. I appreciate everyone who's interested in connecting, even if you're not, an ex-Jehovah's Witness. I'm always fascinated and interested in learning more about other people who are cult survivors. I just want to talk a little bit about something that we all seem to share in common, those of us who leave cults, and that is the very hard topic of shunning. I know I've touched briefly about my experience with being shunned by my family in other videos, but I never really talked about, like, in great detail in a whole video about it. And I have been getting quite a few questions about how the shunning started and how it's going today. It's a lot different today than it was when it first started, but the shunning for me honestly did not happen overnight. The shunning kind of started actually before I even left the organization officially. It started back in, I would say, 2009, and I had officially left the organization last year in 2017. But the shunning actually didn't start because of me fading away, because I actually didn't start fading away in 2009. I was still very active and in the organization, and I was going out in field service. And actually, I knew that I was going through some doubts. I was having my doubts and starting to question things. So I did what any other, quote unquote, good little JW girl would do. And that is try to strengthen myself spiritually, JW style. And what I mean by JW style, I mean, like, going out in field service more, requesting shepherding calls, hanging out with elders' wives, things that I was taught to do when I was a child, even though I had to hide a lot. So basically, I was doing what I was taught, which is basically put on a show and try to convince myself that this is the right thing to do, even though things just never really felt right in the first place. So the shunning began when my siblings and I learned that our childhood abuser, who was a caretaker of ours as well as a ministerial servant in the congregation and was in good standing until he got charged with child molestation and child abuse and was put in prison, and he was disfellowshipped, but he I guess earned his gold stars again while he was in prison and was reinstated and all that stuff. So when he was released, he was welcomed with open arms back into the congregation. And to my surprise, he was welcomed with open arms back into our family. Now, not by my siblings and I, obviously. It was a big shock to us as well, but particularly our mother, she took back this person who did these things to us, who hurt us in every way that you can imagine. And the shunning kind of started from there because I I was a grown woman at this point. I had already, moved out and got my own place. I was, in university and, already going against the rules there by getting a higher education instead of becoming a full-time pioneer and all that stuff. So I was already kind of walking a fine line there with my rebellion and being seen sort of as a black sheep, I did not want to attend the Kingdom Hall wedding. Yes, they had a Kingdom Hall wedding of my mother and this man who had hurt me, not only me and my siblings, and he hurt my mother too. So I couldn't really understand it. It was a shock, like I said, because I was pretty much lied to for years. I didn't even know that they were still carrying on a relationship, even after he was in prison, and they did go through a full divorce. And my mom, she got what they call a spiritual or scriptural divorce. So because he not only abused us, but he'd also cheated on her with other men. And so that's how she was able to get her scriptural divorce, but I don't think she actually really wanted to divorce him. So she remarried him. And I did not go to the wedding, even though I was expected to and was sent an invitation. And immediately after that, me not showing up and not RSVPing, I was looked at as a bad person, really, for not accepting the marriage, even though I was grown up, not a child, and wasn't under the care of these two people anymore. So it was so bad, really, that I had to switch congregations because I felt sort of looked at weird. I felt like I was living a nightmare, actually, because when I was younger, I used to have nightmares of them getting back together and everyone accepting him and me just sort of being the only one that was like weird about it. And oddly enough, that nightmare actually came true. I found myself feeling really isolated because whenever they would, be there in the Kingdom Hall together holding hands and stuff, everybody was giving him hugs and, welcoming him back. And then it was just like, I couldn't be there. I just couldn't watch. And it caused severe depression. And I felt isolated. I felt like I was the one who had done something bad because I remember going out in service. This is a really painful experience. I remember going out in service with a friend of ours, a friend of the family who was almost like family, really. And I remember her asking me to go out in service with her, and I was really excited because I thought she was a great lady. And I thought she just wanted us to, work together and just sort of catch up and, work the door to door ministry. But really, there was an ulterior motive there. And I found out after, we were knocking on doors, casually walking down the street, ready to move to the next territory. And mind you, this is a pioneer sister who I really looked up to. And she said, we should talk about some things. And I was like, sure. And she brought up me not going to my mother's wedding and her new husband's wedding. And I was kind of taken aback as to just wondering why she felt the need to bring that up, especially in the middle of field service, in the middle of the ministry. And I just was really quiet. I did a lot of listening, but when you really just listen to what a person says and you just take a step back and you just sort of remove your own ego, your own self, and you just look at that person and you hear them, it's so different. At first it hurt my feelings, but then I took a step back and just try to consider why she was what motivated her to say this. Was it that she truly cared about me and how I felt, or was it that she was trying to either warn me about something or pass a message along? And really, it was the latter. It was her trying to speak for my mother, who was someone who was, again, like I mentioned in my other videos, about show. And it was hurtful at first, but then as I came to realize that it really wasn't about me, it was about how things looked and how this facade had to keep going and how we had to maintain this perfect look for everybody, that we were above everyone else and that we didn't shun people. And it was just like this, basically she was basically saying that I was shunning him and he was welcomed into the congregation and that I was sort of isolating myself. And you know, it was like I was being gaslighted, made to feel like I was this crazy person. So I decided that I was just going to switch congregations, and I went to a different Kingdom Hall, and I had not attended the same Kingdom Hall since, with my family, my mother and her husband, my other siblings who were in that congregation as well, since 2009. So I went off on my own way. And in a way, that's when the shunning started, simply because I did not want to be a part of that. I wanted to sort of just let the past go and move forward with my life, not forget about the past. Obviously, you want to live and learn, but I didn't I didn't want that night. I didn't want to live that nightmare, and I didn't have to. My mother made her decision. I wanted to make my own decision, and it wasn't that I was shunning this person. I just simply, I mean, we can choose who we want to have in our lives, you know? It wasn't like if he said hello, I didn't say hello back. I did. But gradually over time, like there would be family functions, or we would have mutual friends in the congregation who had gatherings, and they would have barbecues and parties, and I found myself invited less and less, and I wondered why, until finally there was a wedding, and it was a family member's wedding. And it was a very important wedding because this person was a very close family member of mine. And without getting into too much detail as to why it was so important that I be there, it hurt me very badly when I did not receive an invitation. And so I felt close enough to this family member to ask them why was I not invited. And this was about 2 years before I left. It was about 2015. And I just decided to call this family member up and ask them why. Why didn't I get invited? What's going on? And this family member was very honest with me, and I appreciate them to this day for telling me the truth. They said, listen, I'm going to tell you this. Your mother is this important person in my life. We grew up together. She's the first generation for our generation together. So if your mother comes to my wedding, her husband will be there. And I said, okay, no problem. But why can't I be there? And this person said to me, this family member said, please don't get hurt by what I'm saying. I'm not trying to hurt your feelings. I was put in a position, they said, I was put in a position that they were put in a position that they had to make a choice. The choice was either I get invited and I come, and that my mother doesn't, if I was invited. And the choice was made that my mother was invited because of them growing up, them being in the same generation. I'm younger, and this person said that if my mother came, of course her husband was going to come. So the whole reasoning there is that I made my mother's husband uncomfortable just by my presence, because for whatever reason, whenever I was around, if I was around, I made him uncomfortable. And that was one of the most hurtful shunning situations that I had ever experienced before I actually left the congregation, the Watchtower Society, the JWs, the Jehovah's Witnesses, whatever you want to call them. Certainly not the truth, because that to me was not love. Jehovah's Witnesses claim to be about love, and my family, they are what you call the hardcore Jehovah's Witnesses who would drink the Kool-Aid if they demanded it tomorrow. And that was around the time I just decided I was going to start fading away, because that wasn't for me. That's not the kind of love that I wanted to associate myself with. And I started really just doing my research, and I found that these all of this hurtfulness, all of this pain, this is how it is, and this is what they call the truth. I call it a lie, because if that's not the definition of love to me. So when I officially left in 2017, I took my mother out to dinner and told her in front of, with my siblings. And at the time, the siblings that had just recently left were still active in the congregation. And so telling my siblings wasn't as hard, because they sort of had a feeling. They were like, well, we kind of felt you sort of fading away, because you wouldn't really talk about, spiritual things with us, the Watchtower, talk about Watchtower study, things like that. And I wouldn't do it. And when I actually decided to write my disassociation letter and sent it out, that's when I told them. And I told my mom. And oddly, there was this weird look of elation on her face, almost like she was just happy to hear that. I don't know if it was because she wanted to have a official reason to start shunning me, because she already just wrote me out of her book in a way when I did not accept her marriage to the man who abused me and my siblings. And so after that, after taking my mom out to dinner with my siblings and telling them, I had asked my mom to please not tell anyone. Don't tell anybody, don't tell any family members, because it's my place to do so. I felt like it was me who had to tell them. She promised not to. I went home, went to sleep. The next day I woke up to about 5 or 6 emails from a couple of family members and some people who I had not heard from since I left my mother's congregation and moved to my own congregation. These were people who I hadn't associated with in years. And they were writing me on Facebook. They were writing me on my email. Somehow they got my email address. Who else would have gotten this information? So I set up a call with my mom and I said, did you tell everybody? And she said, no, not everybody. And I said, I asked you not to tell anybody. She tried to gaslight me and say that she said no such thing. Fortunately, I had siblings there who witnessed the whole thing and told her, yes, you did. You promised not to. And so I wasn't by myself in that. And she never apologized. She never admitted she was wrong. She just said that, she guessed she forgot or something. So that was interesting. And thus began the automatic shunning. It was pretty automatic. And my mom, she doesn't talk to me on the phone. She texts me, though, because texting to her is more acceptable than shunning. I've been officially out of the organization for coming on a year now. And it's not easy. It really isn't easy. But had they not started shunning me before I left, I think it probably would be much harder than it is. The shunning is real. Don't let any Jehovah's Witness, tell you that they do not shun. I am telling you the truth. This is my experience. Again, I'm not bashing any religion or person or talking badly about anybody. I am stating exactly what I experienced and what I continue to experience. And what I'm stating, these experiences are my own, and I'm not speaking for anybody else's feelings. I'm speaking about my own feelings based off of actions that have taken place. Facts, true things. So I hope that answers some of the questions about the shunning and my experience with it. Yes, I'm still being shunned. Fortunately, I have 3 siblings who have left recently the Jehovah's Witnesses, and I'm continuing to help them because I still consider myself a spiritual person. I'm a Christian, and I still believe in God and Christ and everything, and that's just my choice. My siblings, I have 2 who are still believers in Christ and God, and I have one who's just really confused, and rightfully so, because this person is the youngest, and they were like baby born in, unlike some of us who were raised in. Like, I was brought in at 8 years old. So yeah, I was a kid, but I wasn't born in like this younger sibling of mine. So they're the most confused, and I don't try to push anything on any of them. I just say, hey, I'm here for you. If you need to talk, I'm here. If you have questions, I'm here. If you just want to like live your life and enjoy every moment of it, do it. You know, it's your life. We've lived long enough under fear and other people's control and being told that we have to accept something that just does not feel right. So I'm going to leave it right there. I'm sure I'll touch on the subject a lot more in other videos. I do want to talk about a few documentaries that have aired recently and share my opinions. I do know a person who is going to be on an upcoming documentary about survivors of child abuse in religions, and one of the segments will feature 3 former Jehovah's Witnesses, and so I'd like to talk about that, and yeah, it'll be great. Thank you guys for listening. Again, thank you for the support. Please keep the emails and the messages and comments coming. I love connecting with you guys. Y'all are the best. Take care. Let me know. Let me know about your shunning story. Leave a comment below or send me an email. I'm very interested to know how you're coping with all of this shunning, and if it's how the ride's been for you. Has it been hard? Is it still hard? Has it gotten a little bit easier? And if it has, how long has it taken for it to get easier for you? I'm really, really curious because I'm still sort of battling. As you can see, this is a really touchy subject for me, but it's probably just due to the circumstances around it. All right, guys. Talk soon. Thanks.